Hey, Chris. Today, we're going to help our listeners use their superpowers to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Live Fully, Lead Authentically, a Brimstone Coaching Group podcast. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, same. We have a friend with us today.
It's
I want
nice
to.
to have friends, isn't it?
It is nice to have
This
friends.
is a new friend to me, but yeah.
We have a new friend. Yeah, my high schooler would say, "What's it like to have friends?" Uh, yeah, we have a new friend with us. I want to introduce to our listeners Tami Bajema. She is the Director of Staffing and Talent Development at Belt Power. With nearly 20 years in human resources, three HR degrees, and experience leading teams for companies from 35 to 1,200 employees across global and small businesses, Tami dives deep into the psychology of hiring, job board algorithms, and the strategy behind building win win recruiting strategies. She's passionate about teaching people how to find jobs that use the right skills, teaching recruiters how to hire for retention using transparency and authenticity, and simplifying the way each of us can take ownership of our own professional development. Tami, great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Likewise, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
many degrees does an HR person need? I have so many questions already. I just wanted to raise
So
my hand.
that's a valid one. You don't need all of those degrees. Matter of fact, a four-year degree is typically just fine. I guess I'm a
Yeah.
glutton for punishment is the answer to that. So my
I would go
associate's
with
degree.
lifelong learner, but
There we
glutton for
go. Or
punishment works. That's
gluttony for
fine. Yeah.
yeah.
punishment. No, I added on a minor in my associate's degree to because I discovered HR. And
Yeah.
then my bachelor's degree was in strategic HR. And then
Mhm.
obviously my master's degree is in further HR, employment labor law, and strategic
Mhm.
HR. So yeah, I'm really a nerd for HR. Thanks for helping me explore that with your listeners.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Tami, you and I met a few months ago. It's been super fun to get to
Mhm.
know you. We spent a lot of time in our first conversation talking about your passions, your work in the HR field, especially around, in your words, helping people figure out what they want to do when they grow
Mhm.
up. Um,
Yes.
I love that. And you're not talking about like helping kids decide what they want to do when they grow up. You're
Sometimes.
talking about adult sometimes, but I mean you're talking about all of us, right?
Yes, yes.
Say a little more about why that's a passion of yours and how you lean into that passion.
Mm. So many things I could talk about, but I can tell you the reason that this is needed is because bulk of my role as in my formative years of developing who I was as an HR person was spent interviewing people. And I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many degrees I show being unused. I can't tell you how
Yeah,
many people change career pathways 10 different times and can't seem to climb the ladder because of it.
yeah,
I can't begin to tell you how many candidates that I talk to who are applying for a role that as I'm talking to them, I know that this is not the type of role for them, and no
yeah,
one's telling them what is.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to
Mm.
figure that out without the transparent feedback and the willingness to receive that feedback. And
yeah.
so I find that there are little coaching opportunities in interviews. Matter of fact, had one today. So before the call, I was on an interview with a maintenance person. He was looking for a specific type of role. And I just pointed out that, the way to get to the role he wanted was actually to go off path. And so the
Mm.
reason I'm passionate about it is because I see the prevalency of so many people being lost. I can't
Mm.
tell you how often people are just applying for jobs, hoping one will stick. Think they call it what did they call it something about spraying your resume everywhere and not really
Yeah.
paying attention to the job description, just playing the numbers game, which work.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
then you take a role and you're trying on that shoe and realizing that doesn't fit. Then you try on another one, that doesn't fit, and then all of a sudden your resume looks awful, right? So
Yeah.
there's a really simple formula that I really want people to understand because I had to walk through this and understanding what I wanted to be when I grow up. I walk fifth graders through this. I think that's a really formidable year for students. I actually teach a class on what do you want to be when you grow up. And
Mm,
then for adults, I coach and develop executives and leaders throughout
Yeah.
organizations because they still don't know what they want to be when they grow up. And so this formula really helps in all those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You talk about people's superpowers, like helping people identify what their superpower is.
Mhm.
Say more about that, would you?
Yeah, yeah. So the first of all, the formula for success is that you have to like what you do, be good at what you do, and it has to be marketable. There's another
Mm,
mm,
piece within the marketability. Your motivation has to be stronger than that marketability, and I'll
mm,
get to that in a minute. But I firmly believe that our attributes are given by a higher power.
mm.
Whether that's God for your listeners, whether that's Mother Nature, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
But I believe that
Yeah.
all of our attributes given are good. So then you're arguing, well, Tammy,
Yeah.
there are people in prison for a reason. Not all attributes are good. Disagreed. So let me give you two examples. So if I have a child, maybe, just maybe, we'll leave that child unnamed, that was very manipulative. And I was so frustrated. And I personally had to attack this belief that all characteristics are good. And so I had to reduce my anxiety about raising a child who was manipulative, how that
Mhm.
impacted how I looked as a mother, what my
Yeah.
motivations were selfishly to try and just make him into who I wanted him to be, or to
Yeah.
embrace his superpower, which happened to be manipulation. Okay,
Mm,
so you tell me how you do that. Well, you actually just need to look at the dial. So I believe a characteristic is a dial. So
mm.
if you're being titled as manipulative, maybe you need to turn that down. So any strength, when overdone, becomes a weakness. Let me say that again. Any
Yeah.
strength, when overdone, becomes a weakness. So if I'm persuasive and I'm so persuasive and I'm so good at it, well, I'm a kid and I don't know any better. So I'm going to just utilize that for my own
Mhm.
selfish reasons, right? I'm going to
Yeah.
manipulate my way of getting out of going to school, manipulate my way out of getting to do my homework. But you know what? They're using their superpower. But if you turn
Yeah,
down that dial just a little bit, you can see that manipulation can actually just be the gift of persuasion. And
Yeah.
how many people use persuasion to sell goods,
exactly.
to
Yeah.
persuade people to give to a charitable cause? So you can channel that into a really positive way. Now, flip that
Yeah.
coin. You can also overdo a strength that can become a weakness for yourself that has been traditionally considered good. So let's say
Mhm.
you're hardworking. No one in the universe is going to say being hardworking is a bad attribute, but if you turn that dial up, you don't have work-life balance. You're neglecting your
Yeah.
family, you're neglecting yourself and your
Yeah.
well-being and your emotional health. And so, because of that, we just need to find balance in our superpowers. And how do we figure out our superpowers? Great question, Kurt. Glad you asked it. So, it's actually the combination of what we like plus what we're good at. So
Mm.
if you just take a
Yeah.
column, write down think of all the jobs, experiences, interactions, school, any experience you've had to this point, write down all the things that you like. And then take on the other column, all the things that you're good at, not the things that you think you're good at, things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
other people say you're good at. So, what do
Mhm.
you know on your performance reviews did you do well at? What did your
Yeah.
teachers say were your best subjects? Where did you get A's without putting in the effort, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that you're good at. Then match those up. Poof, you found your superpower. Because if
Mm.
I like to give the example here of a singer. So back to that formula of like plus what you're good at equals success.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm a singer and I'm really good at it, but I don't like to tour, I'm really nervous in front of people in public speaking, am I going to be successful? No. Let's
Yeah.
say I am not a good singer, but I love being up in front of people and I'm charismatic and I'd love to tour and I'd love to participate. And am I going to be successful? No, because you're not a good singer. And so that's
Yeah.
where success lies, is if you're a good singer and you like it, then you can be successful. Now we're to the marketability piece where you go, okay, so your perseverance and your motivation needs to be higher than the marketability. So then if I'm a singer, it's really tough. There's a large, small margin of people who make it and successfully, but their perseverance has to fill in the rest of that blank, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Hmm.
that is how we're successful. And so there's a
Yeah.
quick way to do that. After you do the likes and good columns, you just literally take those words. You go out on Indeed.com. I'm not making a plug. No, I'm not sponsored. Yes, I should be. But if you go on to Indeed, you can just type in keywords. Don't put in a location. Just type in all of those superpowers that you've discovered of yourself, and you'll get hundreds of job descriptions telling you roles that you could do. And guess what? If it's on Indeed, it's marketable because they're hiring for it.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
that is the simple formula that I'm dying to get out to your listeners and anybody who will hear it because it's that simple. And I really
Yeah.
want to reduce the amount of applicants that don't know what they want to be when they grow up and get more quality candidates that do because they are self-aware enough to be able to say, these are my superpowers, instead of having to have somebody out on the outside figure that out for them. Or
Yeah.
worse, you figure it out in your employment and maybe lose your job, or you're
Yeah.
struggling and you're stressed because you're not successful in your role and you're beating yourself up for it. I see it every day, guys. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so passionate about the way that that doesn't have to be that way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's my response. Sorry, that was
No,
long-winded.
no, I love that. I love that. I have a lot of questions. I want to give Chris a chance to pop in if you want to
Then you
pop
you
in.
will not have an opportunity to ask questions. Like
Well,
there's
that's
so
okay.
much. So I think where I just want to start with a couple of things. Like I we would agree that um, every strength has we would say a shadow side, right?
Mm,
That we can go and go and go and be great, right? Be really good and hard workers, but that at some point there's a cost to that.
yeah.
Hmm.
And so I love how you highlighted that. And then I would say too, like I've had to get to a place where I understand that I think theologically, uh, psychologically, we're all made up of parts. And so
Mm,
your superpower, you're talking about manipulation. Well, that's just a part of me that's trying to help me feel safe.
mm,
It's not right or wrong. It's not
yep,
bad.
correct.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
no bad parts. There are just good parts who are working overtime to keep
Mhm,
me, help me feel safe. And so if I,
absolutely.
and all of it. So, I mean, and then you hit on it at the end there where like it's all about self-awareness. Can
Hmm.
I understand who I am, what my superpower is, the things I love to do, and understand the shadow to those things? I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
it does seem really simple. And
It's
I
not
think we
though.
also understand that it's far more complex, wouldn't you
Yes.
say so?
Yeah.
I mean,
So
the
it's the ability to
formulas, the
receive it.
formulas is concise, which I
Hmm.
like. It's repeatable,
Hmm.
and that those things make it marketable. But it's
Yes.
it's also a challenge, right?
It is. It's the ability and willingness to receive that. Because I think we get in
Yeah.
our own way
Mm,
so often and stick our heels in to try and prove that we're good, right?
mm,
No, I'm good
Yeah.
at this. I'm good at that. And
Yeah.
the thing is we don't have to be good at everything. There's a
Yeah.
reason why I
Oh,
don't do
what?
accounting.
Yeah,
Trust me, the
I
numbers
know.
and I are not going to do the same things as an accountant would. And so, yes, to your point, you have to be willing to receive that information, which is what I find so
Yeah.
interesting about the work with BCG, because honestly, you guys are helping people be willing to receive that feedback, to understand what they truly are good at and not what they think they're good at, and not just what they want to be good at. Because I also find, Chris, to your point, I also find that people are trying to find a self-worth by being good at everything. And so they're
Mm,
actually seeking out roles that are the opposite of their
Yes.
superpowers to prove to themselves that they are good enough.
interesting.
And it's
Yeah.
Interesting.
so hard to watch. It's because I
Yep.
just want to turn their heads and go, you were built this way, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And actually, that's
Yeah.
great. And if you were in
Right.
that right role for yourself, you'll feel successful as well as you'll be contributing in a way deeper level than anybody else because you're using that
Yeah.
superpower.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a coach, and then I'll stop, Kurt. But I had my one of my coaches, one guy who coached me along the way, had asked me, like, we were having a conversation about these kinds of things. And the question he asked was, I think something that Henry Nouwen probably once wrote, but it was along these lines. When will you stop trying to become more than you are and become
Mm,
who you actually are?
mm,
And so sometimes I think that there's this motivation that is, well, I need to prove something to myself. And
hmm.
but what I know about me is oftentimes because of what I have believed about myself, I have to prove to others
Yes, that is.
about things
Yeah.
about me that aren't necessarily true or even mine to convince them, because the only thing I have any control over is me. I can't control what
Bingo.
you think about me, Tammy. So uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's these things are really complex,
Hmm.
and they don't have to be as hard as we make them.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, you point out some really good stuff though, because that's a great saying. And by the way, I'm going to steal that. I really
Mm,
like that from
mm,
your coach. But there's so much opportunity to humbly understand yourself. But I don't want to negate the fact that we can still improve in all areas. So, for
mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
example,
Yeah.
like my youngest child, he is a math and science nerd. He literally looked at my ring the other day and spouted off a name of a rock that I had no idea even ever existed. And I was like, okay, cool. But
Yeah.
he struggles in English and he struggles in social studies. And I just always say, you need to try at everything. You need to
Yeah.
put in your best effort, but the things that you excel at, I expect higher, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
in those areas, you're going to continually grow and continually develop, but to understand who you are gives you that sense of comfort to just mm, not need to prove it to anyone else, to your point, or to myself.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
helps me understand tangibly that I don't need to be all things for everyone all the time, right? And that's,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
where society gets an unhealthy balance of, trying to be perfect, and that's just not
Hmm.
realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just gold. I mean, Tammy, this is why 10 seconds into talking to you, I felt immediately like I need to talk to this woman more. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's so good. Can I ask you a question about how this plays out in real time? You had this moment this morning with this maintenance candidate, and you get to coach them. And Chris and I'm going to speak for Chris. We can tell like you are passionate about helping people find
Good.
Hmm.
what's in alignment with who they are.
Hmm.
When you have this moment where you realize like, oh, this is not going to be the right fit for this person, how do you do that, and how is it received?
That is such a good question, Kurt, and I love your curiosity. So,
Yeah,
I do have a knack of becoming familiar quickly with people,
yeah,
meaning they feel comfortable with me quickly because I feel comfortable with most everybody. Honestly, I can talk to the wall probably. It's maybe something I need to dial down as my communication skills. But anyways, um, in real life, I find that it just becomes a win-win for the employer. So keep in
yeah,
mind, yes, I'm in a director role. I know all of our roles that are available. And a lot of times in that conversation, let's say somebody's applying for an account manager or customer service role, when really they should be in purchasing. And that might be because I ascertained during the conversation that they don't really like dealing with the confrontation, and I can tell that over the phone. So why would I put you in a customer service role? Not that we have a
Yeah.
lot of confrontation, but of course you're going to have it in a customer service role. It's just like nuts
Eh,
and bolts.
Yeah.
So then I will shift and say, you know what? I'm going to pause the interview real quick because I'm seeing XYZ in you, right? And then I point that out to them. A, they feel seen. That's important,
Mm.
I think, because
Yeah.
of course, if people
Mm.
feel seen, then they're more receptive to receive that feedback. So then if we've got somebody who is willing to receive that information, then I can say, hey, I've got another role in purchasing
Mm.
where
Yeah.
maybe this is what would you use these skills and this is how you would be able to do it and this is what that role would look like. And oftentimes there's a long pause.
Mm.
They take a minute to think it through and they go, that would be amazing. I have never
Mm.
had anybody take the time to explain that to me. And they're all
Yeah.
receptive, Kurt, because that's
Yeah.
my
Mm.
point. And they're all wanting to know what they can be when they grow up. And
Yeah.
Mm.
and I don't care what age you're at. I've done
Yeah.
this at all ages. So there are times where I have stopped somebody mid-inter, Kurt, this is bad, but it's true, stopped somebody mid-interview and said, listen, I don't do this very often, and I don't because it takes emotional energy out of me, and I can't do that for everybody. But there are times where I can see where somebody's career should go, and I will say, listen, time out. You're applying for, let's use that customer service role. You're applying for this customer service role, and you've got all of this background in medical. You seem really passionate about helping people. And yes, you talked about how you don't want to go back to school. And my brain works out this algorithm knowing jobs in multiple industries. And then I start talking, have you ever thought about working in a retirement home? That is
Mm.
something you wouldn't have to go back to school for. So I
Mm.
give them another pathway to use their superpower, their likes and their what they're good at in an
Yeah.
avenue that they can feel fulfilled because then they're helping people still. They're using
Right.
that
Yeah.
medical knowledge that they had in that
Mm.
scenario. They're able to leverage all of that knowledge that they have in that industry, and they're going to
Yeah.
be more successful than doing a complete switch to a different role that they were just trying to try on a new shoe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, you know what happens there is then I, as the employer, take the risk on that person and then I have turnover. So that's how this practically works to benefit the employer, which I'm
Yeah.
sure is going to be one of your questions too. Like, how does this really play out? Well, the employer gets engaged workers in this
Yeah.
formula.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
if you like what you do, you're going to work harder at it. That
Yeah.
means that we get more output. So I'm not saying that
Yeah.
I'm doing this for selfish reasons. I'm doing this because I care about the individual, but it's an amazing, beautiful thing that ends up being a win-win for everybody. Because if you're doing
Yeah.
what you like doing, you're working harder, doing more output, then we're winning all day long. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously that way we can even break up amicably. I've done that as well. Like their
Yeah.
Mm.
growth outgrows us, but they
Mhm.
tell us about it a year ahead of time because we've helped them through that journey. So I'm going to ramble for a minute. Feel free to cut it out. But like if I had a doctor, somebody who's going to school to become a doctor, apply, we'll use the customer service role, apply for just whatever entry level role at my company. And they're going to school to be a doctor. Well, how many years of schooling is that? Like 12 years? Okay. So you need a part-time job because you're going
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
need something that'll work around your school schedule.
Yeah.
You're probably good at science because you're going into the medical arena, right? So I'm going to probably put you in our engineering department because we also have a lot of like chemicals and things of that nature that they could really learn from that would be transferable skill set for them in the medical field. Then, okay, doctors also need a bedside manner, right? Okay, now I'm going to put you in customer service to give you the ability to
Yeah.
handle that confrontation and see how we can walk through that pathway with them to give them the skills they need while conversely giving us what we need. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Transparently. And then when they get to the point where they got to go off and be a resident somewhere and they got to go to another state, they're going to let me know that ahead of time because I walked with them in that journey. And
Yeah.
then I can prepare a succession plan. Then they can, and then they're going to refer somebody to us. Yeah, you got to go there because they'll help you figure out what you want to be when you grow up, right? So
Hmm.
that's where this whole circle just starts to spin. And that's why I can't help but be so passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you told that story or used that example because that was the example when we first talked that I thought
Mm.
that
Really?
is
Okay.
gold. Yeah, I'm so glad you used that medical student example.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
stop
mean,
using the
that's
same
fantastic.
examples. I'm gonna have to change it up a little bit.
No, don't
Keep
do
me
that.
guessing.
Don't do that. But isn't that like so the relational depth to which you engage with people
Mm,
and as you walk with them, right? That seems to, uh, I'm imagining that softens the blow in delivering feedback.
mm,
Um,
great point.
have you given feedback that was negatively received? Like I have a working theory on feedback, and I think you've
Mm,
helped me understand it, the antidote. But
mm.
yeah, anyway.
Yes, of course. Lots of feedback. So another area I really am passionate about is employee relations.
Mm,
And really, what that is me teaching other people how to solve their own problems. So that's
mm,
employee relations. So I'm
hmm.
not a complaint center. Why would I work on something harder than you do? That's my
Yeah,
statement. And now,
yeah,
if
Yeah,
there is a buzzword, if there's something toxic happening, if there's, harassment, but of course, different route, not what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah,
99% of the time, it's going to be somebody who's like, so and so was mean to me, or I'm whatever, or
yeah,
I'm giving that hard feedback that maybe
yeah,
supervisor, you're being really harsh in your delivery. So what I like to do in that scenario is to point out my assumed intentions. So I think we all
yeah,
want to be seen as having
yep.
good intentions. And again, I believe that all of our attributes are good fundamentally. I don't believe anybody comes to work to suck at it. I don't believe anybody
yeah,
comes to work
Yes.
to
yeah,
be a jerk. I really don't. And
yeah,
maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm an optimist, but I don't really care. That's where I choose to live. And
yeah,
honestly, in those conversations, I will say, okay, this is what happened. And I can see in you, and from knowing you, I know your intent was this.
Hmm.
Help me understand what your objective is. Are you trying to achieve X, Y, or Z? I'm trying to
yeah,
achieve Z. Let me give you the tools for ways to do that better next time. So that way, when they come to me next time, what'll happen is another scenario where they might have that maybe less than favorable attribute that's maybe being a little turned up or too down unnecessarily, they'll come in and talk to me. Tammy, we talked about this. Can you help coach me on how to have this
yeah,
conversation
yeah,
I'm about to go
Hmm.
into? And that's all I ask, right? And it doesn't have to
yeah,
be me. It could be their
Yeah,
supervisor, it could be, anybody else, a coach or mentor, but just to be willing to receive that feedback. But it's because I deliver it in a way that makes them feel comfortable receiving it, 9 times out of 10 they do. But there's that 1%,
yeah,
to your point, people who receive
yeah,
it negatively. I have
yeah,
had people, unfortunately, get up, walk out from a meeting receiving feedback. I've had people um, yell, curse, all of the
yeah.
above. Like you just name it. And honestly, I feel a deep sense of sadness that I wasn't able to connect with them, to
Mm,
be able to show them that there's another way. But again, back to the being willing to receive the feedback. Thank
yeah,
you guys for doing what you do to help people do that is really important. And unfortunately, some people are just not in a place where they're willing to be vulnerable. And
yeah, right. And that's it.
yeah,
So we're all
yeah,
broken, unique, and have blind
yes,
spots. And
yes,
because we're broken, unique, and have blind spots, we need feedback, but we don't receive it well because we don't give it well. And what I hear, that's the theory. And what
mhm,
I hear is you're offering feedback in an environment that is for other people. And I think when people understand that we're for them, then the opportunity to deliver
Yeah.
feedback increases exponentially. So, like,
Yeah.
you're really good at what you do. And I'm just, and I get that just by listening to the way in which I think you care for people.
Mm.
And, and that, like, I think that's everything. So,
Well,
anyway,
thank you
this
so
is
much
really
for
well
that.
done.
That's
Yeah.
it's important. I think we all go through life wanting to fit and wanting to be successful.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think people show up for their day wanting to suck at it. So
Yeah.
maybe they're having a rough
You need
day.
to
Maybe
hit her with that line, Kurt.
there's a
Uh,
line.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Brene Brown. Do you know Brene Brown?
Of course, she's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Brene Brown says people aren't sucking on purpose just to piss me off. They're doing the best they can with what they've got.
Yes,
And I remind myself of that daily.
with the tools that served us sometimes in our youth that are
Yes.
no longer
Yes.
serving us now.
Come on, Tammy.
Hey.
Come on.
I read her
Yeah.
books too, not just yours.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty
Well,
honored that you would have read our book. Yeah.
we're
Anyway.
pretty
Absolutely.
honored.
It
Yeah.
was great. Help me get to know both of you.
Well, let's do this. Let's take just a short break, and then I have a couple last questions for you, Tammy.
Sounds good.
Have you ever walked out of a meeting or left a conversation thinking, why did I just show up like that? Why did I shrink back or explode or stay silent when it mattered? You're not alone, and you're not broken. You're likely reacting from a pattern that started long before that meeting ever happened. In their new book, Live Fully, Lead Authentically, Kurt Busch and Chris Godfreyson unpack the hidden second job so many of us carry, spending our days managing the anxiety, fear, and old stories that shape how we lead. Through honest stories and practical tools, they invite leaders to pause, reflect, and lead in a new way. Get your copy today at brimstonecoachinggroup.com/new book. Order now. This is your invitation to lead differently.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Live Fully, Lead Authentically. Again, we're here with Tami Bajema, helping us understand a little bit about our superpowers and how to discern what we want to be when we grow up and how to utilize that in such a way that helps us align with our vocation and our career and how we spend a majority of our life working. Tami, I have a question for you. You have done a really good job of highlighting how important and how impactful this work that you're doing is on the individual that you coach or that you talk with. You've also laid out how this helps the employer. And I think that is a really, really important piece of this, that this is a win-win proposition. However, I sense that maybe some employers are a long way from this, and that this is
Mm.
a huge shift in how to think about people and talent management and talent development. What do you think needs to happen for that shift to become a little more prevalent?
Mm.
Great question, Kurt. So, first of all, the reason other employers may not be doing these types of things is because it's a long game, not a short game.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a long game. But if you're a company that wants to be around long, then these are the kinds of methodologies that these companies need to deploy because
Mm.
the next generation no
yeah,
longer cares about,
yeah,
working up that corporate ladder and not having a life. They care about having some balance. And so
Mm.
if they want to compete in this new market we're heading towards, it's imperative to listen to these methodologies. So
Yeah.
that will be played out by the employers that are able to attract and retain the
Mhm.
talent that cares about those things. And I want those talent. I want that talent that cares
yeah,
about being cared about because that means they're also going to care about their peers and they're going to care about the business.
yeah,
So that's the
yeah,
environment I'm trying to create and what our company's trying to create. But to your question, there are some things that can be implemented. It's first of all knowing that truth always wins. I think that's the easiest
Mm,
way to say it.
yeah.
Truth always wins. So if I'm a candidate and I'm lying about my skill set and I get into the job and I can't actually do those things, am I going to be successful? No. And if the employer lies about the job, which happens a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, the person coming on is going to think it's one thing and it's not, and that person also won't be successful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the short game doesn't win.
Hmm.
The law,
Yeah.
transparency and honesty is the only thing that does. And
Yeah.
so actually the first step is the easiest step. You
Hmm.
have employers need to teach their HR professionals to have a phone interview that is purely intended to find out whether or not the candidate wants the job, not whether or not they're
Mm,
qualified,
yeah.
whether or not
Yeah.
they want it. So I'm going to
Hmm.
tell you transparently
Yeah.
what this job is, what it isn't, what you will have, what you won't have, and then you'll select my job on whether or not that's something you want to do.
Mm, yeah.
Okay. And so that way, when you come on, I've already checked the box before I sent the candidate on to my manager, which, by the way, it's not like we're idiots. We're not looking at, resumes that are completely irrelevant to the role. But if I can play out a story of, okay, I can see how this makes sense, I'll have that phone call, but then I'm only there to make sure that candidate wants this job at this
Yeah.
company. Then I
Yeah.
pass it to the manager to decide whether or not they want that candidate for the company. So that's being covered in your process, but you're just changing it up to instead of being so hyper focused on what the employer wants, you're focusing
Yeah.
first on what the employee wants, and then you've
Yeah.
already got half of the formula figured out. And so then you know that they like the job. The next step is the manager determining whether or not they're good at it. And they're going to ask the real questions. I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to ask them coefficiency of frequency. I'm not going to ask them questions about GDP. I'm not going to ask all those things that are not in my grade level.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am going to
Sure.
find out what they are good at. I am going to find out what motivates them and gets them excited and whether or not that fits to the role. And if so, I'm going to push them to the manager. They're going to find out whether or not they can do it. And then whoever they select, I know already that they want this role, that they want to work for
Yeah.
this company. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, you'll see your turnover go way down.
Yeah.
Can I ask something?
Yeah,
that that
always.
that may not be appropriate, but like I think that there are things that I don't know that I don't know, and there are things that companies don't know that they don't know too, and
Mm,
so like about themselves. So I used to run search processes and
mm.
uh, try to help churches uh, hire pastors,
Pastors. Okay.
and when the church wasn't honest with itself about who they were and what they are actually looking for. It was really impossible for me
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
find to position people appropriately. And then
Hmm.
there's also like because we're unique and broken and have blind spots, there's stuff that we just don't know. I mean,
Yep,
about ourselves. So does that play any part in any of this?
definitely.
Is
That
this,
is a great question that I haven't even come to in my business because I have me, right? So I
hmm,
I just mean I haven't had to think about that. That's a
yeah,
really good question
Yeah.
because in
Yeah.
my scenario, I see what an employer is and isn't really
hmm,
quickly. And
yeah,
so I
Yeah.
can tell I'm almost like a third party, even though I'm employed by the company because I
yeah, that's
work
Yeah.
for
great.
the business and I work for the people. It's that hybrid in
Yeah.
between place. So I would
Yeah.
say in that scenario, you need a third party. You
Yeah,
need a person like the in-between HR person or an external recruiter that will come in and ask all of those questions, but
yeah,
not just
Yeah.
to the people who lead it, but also to the people who do it. So asking
Yeah.
in that scenario, asking the congregation, asking the people, taking a
yeah,
survey and understanding what's really going well and what really could use some help. And honestly, I think that's the fun of this project is because you can get employers to become more and more humble and transparent in this process,
yes,
and they can put their resources where it's actually needed and stop
Yeah.
hmm,
selling what they're not and start
yeah.
being what they are.
That's really great. So much of
Yeah.
what I'm reading on LinkedIn these days is like Pray for the kind of place that will treat you with dignity and respect. And part of what I'm hearing from you is helping people understand that, like, as a person seeking out a role in a new company, like, I play a part. I should take some responsibility. Maybe I
Yeah.
can learn what I want to be when I grow up, so that I'm not applying for places that are going to pummel
Mhm.
me
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
make me
Yeah.
sick and hate my job and quit
yeah.
and then have a terrible resume, right? So yeah, I
Mhm.
just so value what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying it.
Absolutely. And there is ownership on both ends. That's why I'm
Hmm.
pointing out
Yeah.
the opportunities for
Right.
employers to make changes and
Yeah.
employees to make changes, because I think we're also, I think we're driven by the short game, right? We're instant
Yeah.
gratification era that we're in, you know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
for the Dewey
Yeah.
Decimal System, where we used to have to actually look up where books were, and like you used to put effort into knowledge. Now it's like
That's
at your
like
fingertips,
a
right?
Yeah.
reference from the 1990s
I
here.
know. You didn't know I was so old, did you? But the
Well,
but the need to have that instant gratification causes us to try and oversell our attributes because of the role we
mm,
want, not the role we're qualified for.
yeah.
Yeah.
And employers do that too. They're advertising
Yeah.
what they want to be, not necessarily where they are now. And that vision is
Yeah.
important. That same
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the
Oh,
person, where I want to go as a person is important. That's goal setting and continual development.
yeah.
No different for an employer, but the more we are
Yeah.
transparent as an
Mm,
employer and as an employee, the more all the right people just end up in the right roles. And guess what? I
yeah.
Yeah.
have less turnover and I'm developing people within it that makes sense. And it just becomes a fluid model. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited about the concept, but it does need to get out. It's not
Yeah.
something that, like I said, has an immediate turnaround. But I've worked in places, Kurt and Chris, I've worked in places I've come in and after a year reduced their turnover by 40%. That is huge
Yeah.
Yeah.
using this
Of
Yeah.
course.
methodology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 40%, okay, corporations listening right now, what does that equate to in numbers for your business? And training and retraining and recruiting fees and the job
Yeah.
boards and the onboarding programs. I find that this ends because I always end up owning staffing, like my current role. I can see that it ends up creating less work for me, right? I
Right.
see I'm posting fewer
Yeah.
positions. I'm seeing we're talking to fewer and fewer candidates because we're doing the right things. And that takes time. It does take a year or two. It
Yeah.
depends on the size
Yeah.
of the company, but it's possible. I see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And that's why your seven-figure salary is probably
How'd you
warranted.
know? How did you know?
Well, because that's what I would be demanding.
Not quite, but Bell Power, are you listening?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I do
Tammy, I
payroll
mean,
too.
yeah.
Just
I love this. I mean, you just the way you talk about being able to be transparent. I mean, Chris and I in our work you read the book, you know this language of like what's actually so. I just love the way that you translate into saying, look, if we can all just be honest about what we are, what we want, what we need, man, that is just a game changer. I love that.
You stop
Um,
white knuckling.
I
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Stop putting yourself in roles. Of course, you're exhausted every day. You're using something that is
yeah,
not a superpower.
yeah,
How about you go into work every day doing the stuff that you got A's in high school instead of going into classes that you were struggling to get a C?
yeah,
What
Wait a
you're
yeah.
doing
minute.
it to yourself.
I can't work anywhere.
Chris is unemployed.
All
I'm
right,
unemployed. I am not
that
employable.
clearly not. That subject of being a
Mm.
professional is not in high school, Chris.
Suddenly rethinking my partnership.
I'm just being honest. This is authentically me. No A's. Didn't
I love
care.
it. I love it.
So,
Anyway,
here's the last question, Tammy. You've shared this methodology with our listeners, this idea of finding what you like, what you're good at, and then thinking about your motivations. to define your superpowers. What do you want to do with this methodology? Like,
Mhm.
if you could wave a magic wand tomorrow and make whatever you wanted to happen, what would that look like for you? What do you hope for with this work?
Oh man, I am so excited for that question because that's the whole point in me doing this. I will
Yeah.
literally talk in any forum to get this out there and for free. I'm blasting that out there. Like, I am passionate about this because if employers start utilizing this methodology, people will feel cared for, Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will feel
Yeah.
cared for. And is that not the most important thing? It's so important that I feel cared about, that you feel important and cared about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're going to a job every day and you don't feel appreciated or seen or like your skills are being used, that just doesn't have to be that way. So
Mm.
to me, like I mentioned earlier, the first step is just really having an HR person being transparent. So if employers can listen to this podcast and just have that transparency on the front end and realizing that they may scare some people away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those people are the ones you wanted scared away anyway, because when they started, they would have turned over anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they understand, that's the ultimate fail fast. That's the
Yeah.
ultimate, I caught it before
Yeah.
they came on by telling them who we are. So if we're just transparent as employers,
Mm.
we
Yeah.
will receive transparency from our candidates and our employees. And
Yeah.
guess what? That's that win-win. And
Yeah.
so if nothing else, if I can get this word out about this win-win scenario and this little formula about what to be when you grow up, but also a way employers can shift to a win-win scenario interviewing process, and employee relations process, that would mean the world to me because we would all be in the right positions. We'd be in the right, using the right superpowers, and we would
Yeah.
all feel cared for. And to me,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my
Mm.
life work.
Yeah. That's so good.
I
Um,
love it.
I think it's safe to say you got a couple cheerleaders here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so
Thanks.
I mean, thanks for letting us in a
It's
little
so
bit,
great.
Tammy.
Appreciate
Chris,
that.
what do you want to say before I wrap us up?
This is the best part of my day. What a fantastic conversation. Yeah. I'm so
Mm.
grateful that you're in the space and that I now know you. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
did trip and fall into HR and I got lucky. I know I have the 3 degrees in HR, but I took one class that was on HR and I was hooked and I
Mm.
knew my superpowers enough that this was where I needed to be.
Yeah.
But not everybody has that. And so I just want to help them. So if
Yeah.
this can reach your listeners, then I'm thrilled, even one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it works like that, right? We just trip and
Yeah.
stumble and like, oh, look. I mean, that's true. That's why I'm in this space.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that it
right.
wasn't it wasn't on
Mm-hmm.
purpose. I just, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yep. And it's what I will work until I stop breathing at.
It's your
So,
it's your motivation. It's what
mhm.
fills you. And if you can go to
Yeah.
work every day just like being fulfilled by what you do, then they
Yeah.
always say you'll never work another day in your life.
Mhm.
There's some truth to that. I mean, I
Yeah,
work
there
really
is.
thinking
Yeah.
hard, but there is absolutely some truth to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Tammy, I just want to say thanks. I mean, again,
Oh,
it has been a gift to get to hear you talk about your passions, your gifts, your methodology. Thanks for coming on, and for the listener, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just want to know more about how to identify my superpower and use that methodology, I'm gonna link Tammy's LinkedIn in the show notes. I'm going to speak for Tammy for a second. She can correct me, but I think she'd be just fine if you reached out to her and sent a message and said, "Hey, help me understand this a little bit more." If we can help make that connection with a listener, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
oh, I'd love that. Absolutely. And to anybody listening, the goal is not, as much as I love my employer, the goal is not to just find candidates for Ball Power. There are other businesses out there that do what I'm talking about, just not enough. So,
Right.
but you play a part. The listener
Mhm.
plays a part. You understanding yourself, that
Yeah.
self-awareness, the humbleness, the vulnerability, the willingness to look at that. And if you're willing to do that piece, absolutely reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tami. Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, thanks.